Well, hey, welcome back to another episode of Breaking Kayfabe. It's your boy Saucy, and today on the show, we've got Ashlyn. That's the handler of Super Tiger. Ashlyn, how are you doing this evening, this morning, this day?
Uh, Better than I was yesterday. Yesterday was pretty terrible, but I'm feeling a lot better today, so
Well, hey,
this works out.
we're gonna keep everything positive tonight, and in that same line of thinking, Bow Girl, also called Super Tiger or Resu or many other names, seems to be a very chaotically happy person. Am I wrong about that? Please explain to the uninitiated what the character is all about.
All right, so Risa started wrestling at 13. She was born in Japan, so they start professionally wrestling really young over there. I think Riho in real life started at like 9 years old. So when Risa came to the States, she had this goal of making friends with everyone and sharing Lucha Resu to the world. And she kept that really happy demeanor, except for a brief period of time that I don't really like to talk about too much. She did have a heel turn there for a while. It just at the time for the storyline it was in, it seemed like a good idea, but like I don't have many fond memories from that time. So the first chance I had that it made sense, she went back to babyface and she had her little redemption thing, and now Risa's just like she wants to be best friends with everybody. Like as long as you don't actively be mean to her, Risa's goal is like, well, we're gonna be best friends then. So the like she doesn't hate anyone, and like the biggest rivalry she has is Bianca Davis, because I've known Bianca's handler since I started efedding about 4 years ago now, and we were in the same fed when I first started, and we've actually managed to keep that rivalry going on and off for the entire 4 years I've been doing this. So outside of Bianca, Risa's pretty, happy-go-lucky with everyone.
Do you find that you yourself are a lot like the character?
No. So, I personally, Risa's attitude is a way for me to kind of like force myself to be happy when I'm not exactly feeling the best. So she's kind of like a psychological tool for me sometimes
Sure.
to try to bring my own spirits up when I'm feeling, low. So that's why when she was a heel, it didn't really work out too well, because I'd be like, oh, well, I'll just go say something happy. Oh, wait, I'm not happy Super Tiger anymore. I'm always pissed off Supernova, and it wasn't great.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And a lot of e-fetters, I think, are probably use their writing as a form of therapy, right? You kind of get some things out of yourself and onto paper, and it's therapeutic. It's kind of relieves some pressure. So that forced optimism has to be helpful in your personal life, right? Like
It,
you can't
it
help
definitely
but be happy when writing such a happy, vibrant character.
Right, it does help a lot, and I have had other characters that I've used for different emotions. Um, Another one of my really popular characters that everybody seems to really like. His original name was Trin Descaralado, but he goes by Javier Mateo Duran now. And the big thing for Javier was he was an anger outlet for me. And the thing that really stuck was within like his first week, he had a catchphrase, and Javier's catchphrase is simply "motherfucker." Like, he, if he calls you that, you're on good terms. If he calls you by your name, that's when you know you're in trouble. So it's
Sure.
kind of like a uh, flipped kind of deal there. But like, he was originally supposed to be real simple. He had a wrestler based from AAA down in Mexico named Pagano, who's just like an evil wrestling clown. And he was just supposed to kind of be like he goes in, he fights, whatever. No real development to it. But when he got brought into NFW by Stephen Brody, we were working these storylines, and everybody was like, we want to see more Trin. We want to know more about Trin. And, people liked the character, so he evolved based off of this, support from the community and the people that I was writing with.
That idea is not far-fetched, of having that two-dimensional character that is kind of consumed by one emotion, whether it be anger or happiness. This is something you see a lot on TV and in books. And I'll give you a couple examples, and then I promise we'll get away from the subject. But a little bit of trivia. The way I met my wife is that she's a huge SpongeBob fan. And I told her, did you know the characters on SpongeBob are based on the 7 deadly sins? And she said, shut up. I said, no, think about it. Mr. Krabs is all about greed, and Plankton is all about envy, and SpongeBob is the lustful one, and Gary, the snail, is the slothful one. I said, it makes sense when you think about it. And she said, no, I refuse to believe that. But that trope is, you see that over and over again on TV. So you've seen it with the characters on Winnie the Pooh. You've seen it with the characters on Friends. And there's a handful of other ones. Those are the ones that I remember at first. But it seems like a really easy way to have many characters in a situation and being able to stay true to the character, because you have a character and they're consumed by greed. Everything is about greed. Or you have a character who's the slothful one, and they always behave like, whatever their vice is.
Right.
So that's an interesting concept with efed characters, and most handlers have more than one character that are very different from each other. Maybe there's part of that going on there, where you've got the happy character, you've got the angry character, you've got the serious one, and then you've got the goofball one. I would suggest writers who haven't tried that before, write a character that is completely opposite of your main, and you'll be surprised just how much fun it is, and how much you can actually grow through a process like that.
Oh, I agree 100%. So I told you there was a time where Risa had her heel run as Supernova, and I was kind of losing motivation for the character, and I was like, well, I want to do something different. There's a wrestler I really want to use as a pick base. I was really big into Stardom at the time, because Risa, when she debuted, was Starlight Kid base. And I had another wrestler that I really wanted to do a base for, and I had this great backstory for her. So I created the Poison Dragon Dokuki. And when I went to the Fed that she eventually signed with, they're like, well, what's Dokuki's whole thing? And I said, well, in Japan, Dokuki was a monster heel. She went undefeated for years, came to America, to seeking new challenges and opponents. And the Fed head at WWA, really sad that Fed head is gone now. But they said, awesome, I love the backstory. She's never going to be pinned or submitted the entire time she works for the company.
Wow.
And I said, what are you talking about? And the best thing about it was the way that she wrote the angle and the way that Dokuki interacted with other roster members. Dokuki never took a pin or a submission in any match she was ever in. She didn't win everything. She'd be in tag matches, but her partner would be the one that would take the pin or the submission. And the whole roster was just in on it. Characters that were like, oh yeah, nobody can beat me. They'd be like, oh well, you're fighting Dokuki next week, and the character would literally be terrified, oh no, I don't want to fight the dragon. Give me somebody else, And she had this whole year run. It was over a year that she was never pinned and never submitted, and it was one of those rare instances where I had this character people loved her, and I didn't feel the need to like hunt for gold with her, I guess you could say. Dokuki never held a title in that year plus
Oh,
run
interesting.
of undefeated. And, with other characters, you're like, oh, I need that title for relevancy. And Dokuki just never felt like she needed it when she was in WWA. And that character is still around off and on. Her name has changed since then. But those three, Risa, Trin, or Javier, and Dokuki, who goes by Ryoko now. Those are probably the three characters I've made that I'm most known for. Um, but Dokuki was the seriousness that was like Trin was kind of at this point Trin was like he didn't give it he didn't care. Like he just was like, yeah, let's fight. I don't care who you are. Let's just throw down whatever. Win, lose, I don't care. And then Risa was very moody and broody, her emo tiger phase, as I've called it before. And then you had super serious, I will fight anybody and you will lose Dokuki. And it was just a great set of characters that weren't like each other, that it made it a lot of fun to play all three of them.
So, I want to get you to talk a little bit more about that character. I know we're here to talk about Super Tiger, but um, I want to hear about that experience as being the monster. I assume Dokuki is a heel. That
Yes.
monster, invincible figure. What is what does that feel like when you're on an unbeaten streak? Does does the game taste sweeter when you don't feel like there are any threats, or do you kind of miss the climb a little bit?
For me, that whole run, it was like a double-edged sword, right? I was like, oh man, I'm so strong, but this next fight could be the one where everything falls apart. Like, so you have this super. I had this super high anticipation, and I was super excited, but I was also super nervous every time she went into a fight because I I had told the Fed head even I was like, look, if you need her to lose because things are getting stale, that's fine. And I said, but don't tell me because if it does happen, I want to react to it naturally. I don't
Yeah,
want to, be like, okay, well, I'm going to lose this one, so I'm not going to hype as much or whatever. And, you know, you do start to feel like, there's no one can touch me, whatever, no one can beat me. And it feels good. I'm not going to lie. Like seeing winner next to your name week in and week out, it does feel really great. But I think, when WWA closed, and Dokuki, she went to other places. She didn't fare anywhere near as well. Um, but I think it ran its course, and I think if it had gone on much longer, if any at all, the character would have started to get stale for me.
sure.
So it was like the perfect length of time for a run like that.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's got to feel like you're playing with house money, and you just feel like I don't know how long they're gonna let me get away with this, but okay, you're gonna book me to win again? Okay, sure, sure, why not?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's got to feel like the dream's gonna be over any minute now, and it
right.
just keeps going. It keeps going. Whenever I see a streak like that, you have to think of the streaks in real life wrestling. And the two that stick out in my mind are the Goldberg streak of the late '90s,
Hmm.
which at the time seemed really cool, but in retrospect was kind of shitty, right?
Yes,
And then you've got the Roman Reigns streak, which is happening right now, which I cannot stomach at all. I just don't like it at
I'm
all.
I'm on the other end of the I'm on the other end of the spectrum from you. I love Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, and I
I know
just
everybody does, but for me, like I don't know, I don't get the joke, right? It's not working. So when you said that Dokioki was, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong,
you're
was
fine.
undefeated for so long, but also didn't have all the titles, I was so glad to hear that,
Yeah,
because you were able to tell your story without, kind of burying the rest of the roster,
right.
which is where I think the WWE has kind of messed up that story, is that they've put everything onto that one story, all the belts, all the best things, all for one guy, and for me that just kind of sucks. So
Right.
anyway, it's nice to hear that you're spreading the wealth, and that you got to have that run, which is unforgettable, right? I think
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, halfway through that run, the Fed head even came to me and she was like, "Hey, our mid card title, I don't even remember what it was called now. She said our mid card title, the handler had to leave the Fed. Would you be interested in Dokuki being in the tournament for it?" And I said, "I don't even want the belt." I said, you've already got me doing these amazing things. You're telling me I'm never going to lose. I don't want to bog down a title and be the only person to have it, because then it starts to feel like the title doesn't mean anything,
yep,
you
exactly.
know? So by keeping a belt off of her, um, her story went great, and you still had these prizes for everyone else to wrestle for. And Dokuki never even wanted a title in character, because like champions would taunt her and she'd be like, "I'll fight you, but I don't need your jewelry. I want to fight you, not I don't want a stipulation of a belt or whatever. I just want to show everyone I'm better than you." And like I said, the whole roster, fed into it and hyped her up. And I've, I formed some really great, I got some really great memories from that. And I got to work with people that I love to work with still to this day. So it's just unforgettable. Like you said, that time I will never forget
Yeah, you,
in
you
that.
must you must have felt like prom queen for a while there. Like, I can't believe they love me and they're letting me get away with this. But you learn that lesson, which is really hard for people to resist. Like, people flash gold in front of you, and the temptation is just take it and run. Keep it for yourself. Don't let anybody else have it. So good on you for not being greedy when you could have been. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the question is, with Super Tiger, what's the progression? What's the story arc with her right now? Is she chasing titles? Is she a rising star that we all need to know about? Uh, we came here to learn about Super Tiger, so tell us all about it.
So right now, Risa is in this phase where she's not just a wrestler. She's also got like this, Japanese metal idol thing that she does on the side. And, she's a member of the Queens of Chaos, which is a huge faction, right? And she's kind of more a mentor role there. Even though she's only like 22 years old, she's still got almost 10 years of wrestling experience, for these younger, less experienced members of the faction, that they can turn to her and be like, "Hey, So she plays a teacher role there. As far as titles right now, Risa actually holds the national title in Limitless Wrestling. Um, Another belt that she she held for a decent amount of time was the Southern Rebellion Wrestling Queen of the South Championship. When the Fed took its hiatus and then rebranded, Risa got injured in that period of time. She actually broke her neck in hybrid, because I wanted to, take a break from her, cool off a little bit. And that Fed head was really cool, because I went to them and I said, "Look, I know you're rebranding, but so do you want me to abdicate the Queen of the South title so that you can rebrand it for your Fed?" And they said, "Absolutely not. Risa goes down in history as the final Queen of the South, and we'll just introduce a new world title for that." So I mean, if you want to talk about prized possessions, that's probably one of hers. But title wise in Feds, like she really wants a shot at the Ironheart title in hybrid again. She was the inaugural Ironheart champion there. She was defending that title when she broke her neck. So she wasn't even the one that was pinned to lose that title. It was a multi-person match. So it's that kind of that whole I want back the title that I never lost kind of thing. But right now I'm not really looking for like world titles or top titles, you know. I'm more trying to be like, and a lot of people may not agree with this, but I'm trying to be more like a Miz back when the Miz had the Intercontinental Championship, and it was like the Intercontinental title was more important, you know, than the world title at that point in WWE. And that's what I'm kind of trying to do with these mid card titles with Risa right now is, you know, show people, hey, you know, this belt is just as important, if not more so, than the big belt because, you know, we defend it more often and whatnot. She does have a world title right now in Havoc. Honestly, there was some issues with the Fed though, and they had two brands, and the brand she was on shut down. So the fate of what's going to happen with that is still kind of up in the air. But so yeah, she's two belts tiggy right now. Looking to try to get back into the hunt for that Ironheart championship over at Hybrid.
It's an interesting character because she's young, right? So she's not intimidating in any way. She's, I
No.
mean, technically savvy, but she's cute. She's optimistic. She's young. She's tiny. She may be the smallest wrestler I've ever seen in efetting. She's 5 foot nothing,
Yep.
105 pounds, soaking wet. Um,
Oh, yeah. One. It fluctuates depending on like the base that I have for her. Her height's always the same, but like with Maki Ito, I dropped her weight back down to like the 105, 110. And I only know one wrestler in EFED shorter than Risa, and that's Evan. I think Evan is like 4'11" and a half because Risa and Evan argued about who was shorter at one point. Um, but yeah, she's tiny. She's a little bitty thing.
you raise an interesting topic though, and that is about mid card titles meaning more than the world title. Um, by saying that, I mean you're kind of after my own heart here because that's how I feel about mid card titles in e-fetting and also in real wrestling. Is that the top title is that's for pay per view buys. That's to sell merchandise. That's to get butts in the seats. But your workhorse titles are the mid card titles. Those are the ones
Yep.
where we go. We're rewarding our best workers this mid card title because they deserve the recognition. But we also recognize that they're probably not going to be able to work in the main event scene.
Right.
So for somebody, you've kind of written her into this mid card status with her being so small. That world title, and I'm saying this knowing that you're already a world champion in Havoc and champion in other places, but you're kind of saying, well, look, I I don't know that I'm big enough or strong enough to go for the world title. That mid card title means more to me than the world title would mean to you. It's
Right.
everything to me. I'm going to cherish that thing. And I dare you to try to take it off my hands because that's it for me. That's everything that I want. And that's empowering in a way that you're saying, it was made for me. That is where I belong. Um, and there's, you don't have to convince yourself otherwise that, being the top guy in a company or the top girl in the company is the most important thing because it's not. And in that way, it gives you peace of mind. I hope it does. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like, for one, so Reese has been a world champion 4 times now. And honestly, for me, there's a lot more stress involved with being like the face of the company and
Oh yeah,
the world title holder. You know, you've got to really be excelling at, the top level of your game. And even in angled, that stress is still there because, I mean, yeah, it's the Fed head has their plan, but you got to admit if you're the one that's getting these segments every week, and the person who's challenging the champion is just showing more heart and more desire than the champion is, you kind of have a hard time being like, well, I'm going to stick to my guns and keep the title belt on this person, but this guy's way more active, and it almost feels like that guy's getting kind of slighted, if you
sure.
know what I mean. With the mid card titles, I like there's not as much pressure, um, and just like in real wrestling, you could be a mid card champion, you could think everything's great, you could be Zack Ryder, win the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania, and then turn around and lose it at the very next show. And with these mid card titles, I don't feel like losing one is as big or as hurting, I guess, to losing a world championship, because with a world championship, there's a line. You back of
Yeah.
the line for real, and with these mid card titles, it's not as unbelievable for like Risa to lose the national title and then be right back in that picture. Sometimes as little as three to four shows later, as the next person in line again. So, yeah, I've always preferred mid card titles, both in real life wrestling and in efed. Tag titles, I love tag team wrestling, especially in efeding. If I'm paired with another actual person, I do not write a tag team by myself very well at all. But if I can bounce back and forth off of another person, we can make something really special. Um, just to add to that little point right there, real quick. Um, so, like I told you, Risa came in, Starlight Kid, 19 years old. You didn't have masked females in wrestling, efetting. So that's why I picked her. I was like, oh man, I'll stand out. People will be like, oh, who's that? And she came in, and her whole deal was she's a tag team specialist. She got paired up with Arlie Kirk back in WWR. They created a tag team that people still. I can bring it up today, and people still remember Kawaii Trash Pandas Go, or KT PG. And they had a hell of a run. NFW gave us a chance. We beat a tag team that we had no business beating Bloody Fairy Tale for the world title, for the world tag titles. And my writing style, the whole reason I went off on that diatribe is because my writing style, I'm a reactive writer, if you know what I mean. Like if I'm writing with you, I'm going to be like, okay, well, you start and then let me bounce off of you. Because if I can bounce off of you and we can kind of go back and forth, that's where I'm my best at.
Sure.
My solo writing is okay. I've written some bangers, I've written some stinkers. I've been told as much, but I really feel like I do my best work with a writing partner. And I feel like it's easier to have a writing partner, obviously with a tag team, but also in these mid-card feuds, because you don't have that expected arrogance as a world champion when you're holding a mid-card belt, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense. You raised a couple topics there that I want to circle back around to. When you're the top champion in a company, you have that trope of heavy is the head that wears the crown, and it certainly feels that way. Your top star, your top champion is the face of the company. It's what people look at when they go to your Fed. They want to see who the champion is. They're counting on you to sell merchandise, sell pay per views, sell interaction on social media to recruit people to the Fed. The other trope is, the whole concept of imposter syndrome. As that world champion, do you feel deserving of it?
Yeah.
And I think most people at one point or another they question, like, do I still deserve to be the top guy or girl? Can I still get it done? Like, uh, did I earn it? Did I get pushed here too quickly? And that's probably something you have to consider having a young wrestler is she's had so much success early on. What happens if that success stops?
So it actually did happen. NFW, Arlie's gone, KTPG's disbanded, so Risa's striking out on her own, and Fedhead Stephen Brody comes to me and goes, hey, you should put Tiggy in the Vlad Blackheart Memorial Tournament. I'm like, yeah, that sounds fun. Okay. He's like, all right, so the way this works is it's angled, right? But we do judge your press conference, and we kind of base how everybody's going to finish off of how well they write their press conference. And I said, okay, that's cool. So, I spent days writing this thing. I submitted it. And just week after week of this tournament, Risa just keeps winning, right? And I'm like, what is going on, right? I'm getting a big head because Risa's just beating these people that up to this point I thought were out of reach for her. And she ended up going undefeated, quote unquote, because there was one round where she had a tie because it was a double count out. So it was like the Royal Rumble for NFW, and the winner went to Wrestle War to face the champion of their brand. And so Risa's on fire. She's full head of steam. She's 100% in it to win it, and she lost at Wrestle War. She went in there, gave everything she had, and Anton beat her because he got in her head before it started, and I played that up. She was actively like afraid of this guy, and it ended up paying off for Anton where he put Risa down, and that loss that broke Risa. You didn't have that happy, smiley, bounce around everywhere kind of thing. She got like sad, and that was actually the point of her heel turn. She actually joined Crowley's stable at the time as Supernova, and she had that dark, angry at the world bit of time, and then we got through that, and now she's right back where she was. But it was a really humbling experience for Risa to do amazing in this tournament, and then that train just hit a brick wall, So it was a humbling experience for me, and I think it was one that I needed because I was getting pretty full of myself with the character, admittedly. So, props to the people who made that decision, because it was probably one of the best things at the time that could have happened for me as a writer and for Risa as a character, to keep her true to herself and me true to the character as well.
It sounds like there's still a lot of meat on the bone for this character. 22 years old. She could do this for another 20 years. I don't know if you or I could remain in this hobby for another 20 years. Maybe so, maybe not. But we need to wrap things up here. Before we do, I want to open the floor. If there's anything else you want to promote, anybody else that you want to mention that we haven't talked about before, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
So as far as promotions go, I don't really have anything off the top of my head that I can really like rapid fire out there for you. So I'm just going to kind of do what some other people have done before. I want to give some shout outs real quick before we get off of here. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to the handler, whoever you are, for Ticket. That show has been phenomenal. You gave Risa her nickname of Bow Girl. You're so awesome. I've talked about Stephen Brody multiple times in this podcast, so you can tell I owe a lot of what my characters have become to him. Another handler, Morgan Payne, personal friend of mine. V, you're great. FM Young, close to me in my personal life, has seen me through a lot of things. They've already been on the show before with another one of their characters, but I had to give them props. Bianca, stay rude. I love what you're doing with the character. You are the epitome of I'm rich and better than you, never change. So yeah, I mean that's really all I got. I want to thank you, Saucy, for having me on, even though you were like, hey, who's interested? And I just posted a hand raised emoji and you were like, you're in, let's do this. So this has been a lot of fun, and I love the show, and I'm super happy that you allowed me to be a part of it.
Well, you're exactly the type of person that we want to have on the show. So anybody who's listening who has a character, efed character that they love, a project that they're passionate about, please reach out. We'd love to have you on the show. We'll talk about whatever project you have going on. So we're going to call it here. So on behalf of the handler of Super Tiger Resu and Javier Mateo Duran and a number of other characters that I can't remember. Ashlyn, thanks for coming on the show. I've been Saucy. This is Awesome Promotions. Thanks for listening to Breaking Kayfabe. Continue being excellent to each other. Everybody love everybody, and we'll see you all again down the road.